Low elo solo queue is completely different to normal League of Legends, and because of this, you need to change the way you play drastically in order to match the elo that you're currently playing in. But almost no low elo player ever does this, and this is why they're still stuck in low elo. You're probably guilty of falling into the same trap that almost everyone has at some point, where you spend hours studying up on VODs and watching streams of challenger and pro level players, but every single time that you try to implement what they're doing into your own gameplay, it just doesn't seem to work out for you the same way that it did for them. A great example of this is the generic advice that high elo players give: aim for 10 CS per minute. Maybe you've done this before, but then you press tab and see that the entire enemy team just has so many kills, and you can't outcarry them because you missed all the early fights in an effort to try and get more farm. We know that high elo players mean well when they give advice, but the game just doesn't work the same way between ranks, and so the way that we teach the game between ranks shouldn't be the same either. Simple things that seem logical and maybe the objectively best play to make in a high elo game of League of Legends may not be the correct play to make anymore because of the chaotic nature of your games. So in this video, we'll highlight the two key trends that low to mid-rank solo queue games follow, and then we'll show you how to abuse these trends in order to know the difference between what the right thing to do is, and what the right thing to do is in your own games. That's because understanding the difference between the correct play and what you should actually do is what really matters the most for climbing. It's great knowing the theoretical best thing to do, as it teaches you the foundations of why you make most decisions, but the realistic approach, where you adapt the fundamentals to your own elo, is what actually gets you LP. And that's what Skill-Capped strives to do more than anyone else. We have actual challenger players who understand how the game should be played, but we have them play in lower elos or coach low elo players so they understand the struggles that you have to go through every single day. Skill-Cap has tons of courses specifically tailored to help you, like this low elo mistakes course, which covers the most common mistakes in your bracket and how you can fix them. Obviously, that's just one of many. There's courses for every single role, macro, mechanics, last hitting, and so on. All of that is backed up by the insane 5-division rank up guarantee. So if you don't actively improve using Skill-Capped, you just simply get your money back. So if you want to sign up, just use the discount link below after the video. Games played at a lower rank follow two obvious trends compared to games played at higher ranks, and it is these trends that explain exactly how the game is different between these ranks. Now, once you have the keys to open both of these metaphorical doors, you will be able to combine the knowledge from both of them in order to dramatically shift the way that you view the game. Now, the first of these trends that you have almost definitely noticed in your own games is that games played at a lower elo average a much higher kill count than those played at higher ranks. And yes, this is because people in low and mid-range ranks fight for no reason, all of the time. But as you'll soon see, this knowledge is going to be your secret weapon. To see how you could possibly alter your gameplay to play around these trends, we have a replay played from one of my own students, played in Bronze 3, of an Urgot player who makes a mistake that almost every single solo queue player up until Diamond ends up making, but usually they end up blaming their teammates for. To set the stage, our main character Urgot is fed. And I mean really fed. He just capped off his laning phase with another solo kill, before running down top and taking a tier 1 tower, then suiciding to finish off the tier 2 tower for a massive influx of gold. In just 1 minute, Urgot has made 2,000 gold, and is incredibly strong in terms of items, and is only just 1 or 2 minions away from level 13, which would make him the highest level champion in the entire game. Now, upon respawning after his death, Urgot is presented with a choice. He can go back to top lane in order to get more farm and solo XP from minions in a side lane, and threaten an unstoppable split push with his now complete Hullbreaker. Dragon is even coming up in 2 minutes, and the enemy team would have to send at least 2 to 3 members to try and stop this Urgot. This plan sounds amazing, and it honestly would be if Urgot was playing at a higher rank. Now look at the positioning of Urgot's teammates. All 4 of them are positioned far up on the map past the safety of their team's towers, in a position where there is a chance that they might try to start a fight. And this is the key difference between high and low elo. We already know that in lower elo, fights happen constantly, and for no reason. So it's not a question of if there will be a fight anymore. We already know that there will be one. With no objective up and no reason to fight, a fight starts anyway, as is the nature of playing in this rank. Orianna face checks a bush with 2 people in it, despite seeing no one on the bot wave she just pushed in, and the enemy Nocturne and Sylas just randomly engage up mid for literally no reason. It's moments like this where low elo players sabotage their own ability to climb by saying things like, "My Orianna shouldn't have face checked here. My team should have waited for my split push top." But someone who understands the trends of low elo knows that this fight will always take place, with the clue to this being how far up on the map Urgot's teammates are. With how strong our Urgot player is, he would have benefited immensely picking up multiple kills in this mid fight had he played to his elo and walked mid lane to join the inevitable fight, instead of going to top lane to fight some minions. Our Urgot player has a mindset that is completely wrong for his rank, that almost every player who's stuck in his elo has, that is made most obvious in games where you're ahead. When ahead, you possess more damage and more tools, which makes it easier for you to kill opponents when you look look for a play, as well as making you more likely to pick up kills and get a bigger reward when you go to a potential fight. Now this is the key piece of information that almost everyone is missing in a low rank. When you are fed, you benefit more from the chaos of high kill games. And when playing in a lower rank, it is not a question of if there will be a fight, it is a certainty, and you should be playing in order to be involved in as many fights as possible in games where you and your teammates are strong. To see how quickly you can adjust your mindset to this new way of thinking, we're going to show you the next sequence of the game, and we're going to see if you can come to the correct decision, remembering that this game is played at Bronze 3. Now in the aftermath of the fight we just witnessed, Urgot's teammates are either dead, recalling, or in the case of his jungler, safely farming some camps on his team's side of the map. Dragon is also spawning in 1 minute from now, so what do you think our Urgot should do here? Now, based on the positioning of his teammates, the chance of a fight happening right now is very low. So Urgot should use the relative calm in order to push out the side wave in order to buy himself some time to group of fights later on, which is exactly what he does. Great job, Urgot. You really need to look for these windows where your teammates aren't far up on the map, and the chances of them doing something aggressive is much lower. Those brief windows where you can push out the side waves are pivotal in order to keeping your farm up without the risk of your teammates dying. Now, after recalling, we run into a scene that looks a bit like deja vu from earlier. Urgot's about to walk out of base and he has a choice to make. Pay attention to the positioning of Urgot's teammates, and remember, the dragon is spawning in just 20 seconds. Now, unfortunately again, Urgot makes the same mistake as earlier, and he's following that generic advice that high elo players like to give. Focus on 10 CS per minute, so he goes back to top lane in order to farm, and farm. Urgot has failed to consider all of the factors and assess the likelihood of a fight happening. Dragon is spawning soon. Urgot's teammates are far up on the map. Urgot is playing in a lower elo where fights are more frequent. Urgot in this game doesn't have the mentality that he can actually benefit more from the fighting when he is extremely strong, and so he has now twice passed up the opportunity to use his gold lead in order to generate an even bigger lead by fighting his opponent, who would likely have just randomly engaged a losing fight into him for literally no reason. Now that we've learned what our first low elo trend is, we've changed the mentality around these fights, so we can combine what we've learned so far with what we're about to learn from our second low elo trend. Games played in a low elo are long, way longer than games played at a high elo, and this is for a very simple reason. Low elo players just can't figure out how to end a game. Doesn't it sound crazy to you that these super high kill games, the kills don't really convert into anything meaningful that makes the game close out earlier? And often an early lead ends up not mattering because the game will just go for 35 or 40 minutes before one team can figure out how to end. Now this is extremely powerful knowledge if used correctly. What we're about to teach you here is going to sound strange, but we're not going to teach you how to fix this problem and end a game more quickly. We're instead going to shatter your perception as to how to view the mid to late game. Games have a limit in League as to how long they can go for, because death timers scale with your champion's level. More items allow you to push faster, and Elder Dragon exists. As the game goes longer, it becomes easier to end, but for the first 25 to 30 minutes of the game or so, most of the time, low elo players won't be able to figure out the correct macro in order to close out a game. Now, knowing this, you can now mentally separate the first 25 minutes or so of the game as a point in the game where it's unlikely you'll be able to close out the game, and instead, you should make it your main objective to make yourself as powerful as possible, where you focus solely on chasing the decisions that give you the most gold and XP. To demonstrate what this looks like, we have a really interesting replay from one of my students played in Gold 3. This game was played during a live coaching session where I was instructing the student where to go and what to do while they played. And as you'll soon see, by guiding the student to play with the mindset that we're teaching you in this video, this student was able to massively propel their lead forward enough to hard carry this game. Vex in this game had a mediocre start. She's 2-3-1 and has decent farm compared to the other players, but nothing phenomenal. When walking out of base at 15 minutes, Vex has a decision to make here. Her teammates are fighting bot lane, but it's not going well. She has her ult up and so could possibly go to bot lane and join the fight to try and help out our team, possibly picking up a kill. Her other option is to instead go mid and push the wave into tower and possibly get the tower. If you were in Vex's position, what do you think you would do here? The answer to this question may be a bit of a surprise based on what we've learned so far, and that's because the situation our Vex is in varies considerably from the example with the Urgot player from earlier. In this situation, our Vex player made the decision to go bot lane, but I overruled that decision and instead instructed them to go mid because I knew the mentality you should have in low elo games is to always follow the decision that gives you the most gold and the most XP in this early part of the mid game. Vex is not extremely fed, and she can't kill all of these enemies on her own, and based on the health of our teammates, it's unlikely we'll be be able to take a lot of kills or even get a tower down here. Going to bot lane would be a defensive play that would likely not get us more than maybe 1 kill at the most, and that's in the best case scenario. I instructed the Vex player to run mid because I knew that there would be more gold and more XP for her to gain mid lane by pushing waves and towers than there would be if she was to go bot lane and try and join in the fight to help her team. Now Vex picks up 2 waves and a tower before then running back down to bot lane to pick up a further 2 waves in the aftermath of whatever the hell her teammates were doing down there. Vex, in just 1.5 minutes, has made 1000 gold and over 1 full level of XP. The gold alone is worth as much as 3 kills, but she also increased her level lead over the enemy mid laner by half a level because she made the correct decision of always going to the thing that gives her the most gold and XP. When fed like a Rogot player, it's much more likely that you're going to pick up kills by fighting, and so you'll be much more drawn to join into fights when they're happening. But in situations like our Vex player, we may just notice when we aren't so powerful that it's actually best to ignore the pointless fighting that is happening and instead focus on pushing for minions and towers in order to extend your lead, since there's actually more value to be taken from the minions than there is from fighting. Now this huge influx of gold and XP that came from ignoring that bot fight put our Vex player so far ahead that she could actually start to join in fights now, which she could then further benefit from by picking up some kills. But what's really amazing to see in this replay is the dramatic shift in how we play once we reach that final stage of the game, where we begin to near the hard limit for how long a game can go. Usually around 25 to 30 minutes into the game, when the death times are longer and you enter a new stage in the game, where at any given moment you are at most 1 to 2 team fights away from ending the game. No matter how far behind in gold you are, no matter how few towers you've taken, if you have 3 or 4 items and death time is nearly 1 minute long, killing just a couple of enemies will start a cascade where the remaining enemies who are alive are forced to fight you in order to defend their base or Baron, which makes it really easy to close out a game. In this new stage of the game, you have but one objective: kill enough enemies in order to end the game. The best way to imagine the difference between these 2 stages of the game is with a hypothetical. Now imagine you're in a mobile ADC. You're chasing down a kill on a Yuumi, and the Yuumi flashes over a wall to try and escape from you. You have a choice to make. You can either flash over the wall and finish off the kill on Yuumi, which is essentially trading your flash for the kill. It's exchanging flash for 300 gold. Or you can let the Yuumi live and walk away preserving your flash because you think your flash is going to be more important in the next team fight than the gold lead you would get from finishing the kill. This is the difference between these stages in the game. In the early portion of the mid game, where you are chasing as much gold as possible, you would exchange the flash for the kill in order to make yourself stronger in preparation for the final stage of the game. But in that final stage of the game, just before 30 minutes, you would let the Yuumi live and instead save your flash. Now such a small gold lead is nowhere near as relevant to you anymore, and your goal is on winning fights and ending the game, and your flash is the most important tool you have in order to do this, so we need to keep it. Now jumping forward another 10 minutes into our replay, and this is the new phase of the game that our Vex player has just entered. The death timers are far longer now, and it's reasonable that this game can be over in just a few short minutes from now, without the need for fancy macro. So the way that I instruct the Vex player to play from now on is completely different to what we've seen so far. Instead of focusing on pushing side waves and generating money, we are solely focused on grouping with our team and trying to win team fights in order to break open the enemy's base or take a Baron. If we were earlier in the game, we would likely go top lane here and push the top wave in so that we can generate some gold. But instead of doing that, we stay grouped with our team, despite the fact that we are mindlessly running into the enemy's bot jungle when our bot wave is all the way back on our side of the map. This is obviously a mindless play by our teammates, but none of this matters anymore. We don't need fancy macro, we just need one good pick, like this kill we find onto Lux. Now that kill on Lux quickly starts to snowball, which leads into a kill on Annie, which then quickly leads into a third kill onto Kayle, and before you know it, we are charging up mid and breaking open the enemy's base, before the enemy Lux that we first killed has even respawned yet, as her death timer is just so long now. See, now that we've entered the endgame, the senseless fighting is actually productive. Fancy macro isn't necessary anymore, we just need to chain together enough kills in order to break open the base. This is the part in the game where you have to get creative and use all of the tools at your disposal in order to set up the most advantageous fights possible. At this point, it's a great idea now that you've completed your core items to swap to a sweeping lens if you haven't already, and stock up on control wards. You see, buying control wards early in the game can slow down your ability to hit core items, but now that you've already hit important items, we can afford to buy them for sure. The vision advantage that they give your team can be pivotal in order to set up a good fight that will now actually translate into meaningful progress towards ending the game because we're in the super late game. So once you're strong enough to carry and the game is late enough, group up with your team, ideally set up around an objective with good vision, and do everything you can to make it a good fight so that you can put your opponent onto long death timers and hopefully pick up that late game Baron, break open their base, or even turn around a losing game. Now this is what our Vex player does does from here on out. The remainder of the game, she made it her main goal to stay grouped with her team and use the vision advantage of her sweeper and pink wards to get even more kills, quickly breaking open the enemy's base, then finding a Baron, and just 4 minutes after this initial kill she found on Deluxe that really propelled her team closer to the win. Our Vex player managed to close out the game and hard carry for her team. Remember to check out skillcup.com if you want to stop being stuck and start climbing today. It's risk-free, so what are you waiting for? Use the links below as it saves you money and helps me out. I promise you will not be disappointed. With that said, thank you so much for watching, and I truly hope today's guide helped you out a ton. See you next time.